I'm not teaching, I am publicly learning. Hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in UK test part 428 while doing standing leg gymnastics. And if you participated with a standing leg gymnastic, what is it your risk? We're starting with a moderator, we're having the feet staying together, and we're bringing the weight onto the toes and then back onto the heels, and don't do too much, be a bit careful you don't get motion sickness. Now, there was something written about that people need a certification of a language knowledge, and they even advise for further information to the Home Office website. So I have something here. That is gov.uk English minus language. That's what is here. Prove your knowledge of English for citizenship and settling. Overview. You might need to prove your knowledge of the English language if you are 18 or over and applying for citizenship or to settle in the UK, known as indefinite level to remain. Leave or level, I don't know how it's pronounced, because no one uses that word. You can prove it by having either an English qualification at B1, B2, C1 or C2 level, or a degree taught or researched in English. A degree taught or researched in English. Do they mean successfully absolving the Life in UK test in the English language? Would that not be sufficient? Maybe add a little longer text to read and understand. You do not need to prove your knowledge of English in certain circumstances. Your citizenship or settlement application will be refused if you send the wrong qualifications. Okay, the next exercise, having one leg in front, and we go in front, onto the back, and fresh out the back, lifting the toes, and lifting the heel of the back. If you need more time, if you're already in the UK, you may be able to extend your permission to stay so that you can prove your knowledge of English. Check the guide for your current visa for instructions on how to apply for an extension. Next, who does not need to prove their knowledge of English? You do not need to prove your knowledge of English if you are either over 65 or over, so 65 years old or over, or unable to because of a long-term physical or mental condition. You must provide a completed exemption form from a doctor confirmation your physical or mental condition. You must include original copies of current relevant medical reports with your form. Changing the leg. Nationalities that do not need to prove their knowledge of English. You will not need to prove your knowledge of English if you are national of one of the following countries or territories: Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, the British Overseas Territories, Canada, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Ireland, for citizenship only, Malta, New Zealand, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United States of America. If you're from a country that's not on the list, you need to prove your knowledge of English, even if English is an official language. The next exercise, the legs are turning a bit apart, and we're going from one leg to the other. There are no other exemptions if you're applying to become a British citizen. You must have a relevant English language qualification, even if you were exempt when you were granted settlement. Exemptions if you're applying to settle. You do not need to prove your knowledge of English if you're applying to settle using certain work visas, because you proved a knowledge of English when you applied for your current visa in certain other situations. If you're applying to settle on a work visa, you do not need to prove your knowledge of English if you're applying to settle using a skilled worker T2 or Tier 2 visa, representative of an overseas business visa. Next exercise, one leg in front and we go on to the front leg. Right. Minister of Religion visa T2, International Sportsperson visa, Innovator Founder visa, International Agreement visa, temporary work, Domestic worker in a private household visa, scale-up worker visa. Other exemptions if you're applying to settle. You do not need to prove your knowledge of English if you're applying as... Now we're listing a bit serious stuff as reasons. A victim of domestic violence as the partner or spouse of a British citizen or someone settled in the UK. The partner or spouse of the person who has died, who is either a British citizen or someone settled in the UK. An adult dependent relative between 18 and 64 of someone who is present and settled in the UK. is a refuge or has humanitarian protection in a changing name. A refuge living in the UK. Someone living in the UK with discretionary leave. Someone living in the UK with humanitarian protection. Someone who has permission to stay in the UK as a retired person of independent means. A Commonwealth citizen on discharge from HM forces, including Gurkhas. Someone in exceptional circumstances, for example, as an orphan, widow, or overage dependent. If you think that one of these things applies to you, read it again. I was pretty fast in reading it all, not that you skipped a little word, and so read it for yourself if you think one of this applies to you. Now, what else? Approved English language qualifications. And the next exercise feeds the same together in the reading in front. You can prove your knowledge of English by having a recognized English test qualification from an approved test center. You need to have a certificate to prove you have the qualification or be able to view your results online. You can only use English for speakers of other languages ESO qualifications if you're on the list of approved tests. You cannot use other qualifications, for example GCSEs, A-levels, or national vocational qualifications NVQs. If your qualification has run out, some recognized test qualifications only last for 2 years. I'm doing the exercise one. I'm just going on to the front. If you have a B1, B2, C1 or C2 level qualification, you may be able to use it after it has run out either. If either you're applying for citizenship, you're applying for settlement in the UK. You can use a B1, B2, C1 or C2 level qualification that's run out if both of the following are true. You're applying for citizenship, it was accepted when you settled in the UK. It does not matter if a test you took is not on the current list of recognized tests, you do not need to take another test. The last exercise covers it. I'll just upload it just a bit. You can use the B1, B2, C1 or C2 level qualification that's run out if both following are true. It's on the current list of recognized tests. It was accepted for another UK immigration application, for example, when you got permission to enter. If your degree was taught or researched in English, you can prove your knowledge of English by having a degree that was taught or researched in English. Your degree must be academic. You cannot use a vocational degree as proof. If you're not sure whether your degree is academic or vocational, contact your university. If your degree is from a UK university, you only need your degree certificate. If your degree is not from a UK university, you need a copy of the degree certificate in English language and academic qualification assessment. Okay, now there's another thing who do not already have what is needed. Recognized English test qualifications. For visa or citizenship applications, you may need to prove your knowledge of English by passing a secure English language test, CELT. Now we're doing car phrases. We are having the heels on the ground and reading in front. There are two types of tests as different immigration rules require different levels of English language ability. The test you will need to take depends on what you are applying for. For the following application rules, you will need to take a test that assesses your reading, writing, speaking, and listening abilities. Health and care worker, high potential individual, innovator founder, minister of religion, scale-up worker, skilled worker, startup, student, temporary work, and not available. For the following application rules, you will need to take a test that assesses your speaking and listening abilities. Citizenship, international sportsperson, parent, partner, representative of an overseas business, settlement. The level of test you will need, known as the Common European Framework of Reference for Language, C4 level, will depend on the route you are applying for. To find out which level you need, see specific guidance for immigration route. If you are in the UK, you can only take a CELT with one of the following providers. We're done with standing lecturistics. You can only take a CELT with one of the following providers: Pearson, Trinity College London, REG CELT Consortium, Language Cert. If you are outside of UK, you can take a CELT with one of the following providers: Pearson, PSI Service UK Ltd, REG CELT Consortium, Language Cert. Find an approved test. For your results to be accepted, your test must be on the list of approved English language tests you have set at an approved test location, have been awarded in the 2 years before the date of your application. now here's the list of the tests, but that is basically where named at ITIL's Language Person Pays I Service in Trinity College London. It is for you to decide which test to take. It is just made. Which test to take. The list of approved tests gives the CEFR level and minimum grade requirements for each level. Where two or more components, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, of the tests are examined and awarded together, you must show that you achieved the required score on all the relevant components with the same test center provider as part of the combined test assessments. In certain circumstances, if you failed one component of the test, you may be allowed to sit that component again. You will need to check the test provider's terms and conditions before booking a test. Okay, list of approved secure English language tests taken in the UK, taken outside the UK, approved test centers in the UK. Let's make in the UK because that is for 5 years living here, so there was something about that. Maybe we're going to read it completely from the beginning. No, I can't open it. It was done. I can't open it. It is an ODS file. Request in this accessible form. If you use a system technology such as screen reader. Approve these are ODS files. I can't open ODS files. Maybe I need programs on my phone. Okay, I can't open ODS files. Let's go to the website of Pearson here, first thing. Pearson on PTE.com. English test without stress. Study work or live abroad with PTE. Check test availability. Cool. We are world leading provider of English language tests. Check test availability. Choose the test to check availability. PTE, core, PTE, academic. Let's just do the first one. Academic. There's nothing happening. Maybe my phone is stored. Okay, that more or less gave us more informations, but nothing really specific. I assume most people who will do that are not just there for the Life in the UK test, but for the English test also. So maybe I'm gonna search a bit more to that subject. But for now, I can't come any further because I have to work on the technologies. It is the same written as on the other page. And as soon as I make checkability and book, I can't come any further. So I don't know how we will continue, but we will continue. I thank you very much, and until next time.